Hello guys, please remember that the most important actions for the future peace in Ukraine take place not in Washington and not in Munich and of course not in Saudi Arabia, but on the front lines. And what is also very important that after the 3 years of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine, the front lines are now also in Russia. And now I'm not talking just about Kursk, but also about number of locations within Russia that are totally vulnerable for the Ukrainian drones that keep demilitarizing it and targeting strategic for its collapsing economy oil refineries. Every day we demonstrate that Russia can and will be defeated. And it is perhaps the worst moment in history to beg Putin for negotiations. Unfortunately, we do not see any serious steps from the Russian side, but what we clearly see is a tremendous shift in the attitude to the bloody Kremlin dictator and the desire to give him everything he wants. I don't mind if there is a bigger strategy, but from my personal Ukrainian perspective, the biggest strategy is to defeat Russia militarily and economically, and then to hold negotiations potentially with someone different than Putin. So let's talk about the things that are happening right now on the front lines in Ukraine and in Russia. According to various intelligence services, Russians are exhausted and actually seriously slowed down near Pokrovsk. During this week, Ukrainian drones visited a number of oil refineries in Saratov, in Rostov, a pipeline in Volgograd, and military air bases like Engels. Russians have introduced donkeys to back up their troops and now desperately waiting for a new portion of North Koreans. So once again, Russia can and will be defeated. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the collapse and demilitarization of the Russian Empire, subscribe. We discuss all of that on the channel, and not just discuss, but work for that every day. And I'm very proud of Ukrainian armed forces that despite all the chaos, all this informational, tsunami, is doing the job. Most importantly, right now is the wrong moment in history to give Russia pause and let it rearm, strengthen itself, and continue invasion of Ukraine and other countries in Europe. And this is not something that will be of benefit even to various nations across various oceans. According to British intelligence, during this month, Russian troops have seriously slowed down and even in the direction of Pokrovsk, which traditionally was the hottest one. But once again, you know that Pokrovsk already is a symbol of this very serious combat, but at the same time, do you remember for how many months we are talking about this city? That all of the Russian army, backed up by North Korean soldiers and even donkeys, cannot take during more than half a year. And during that time, we also keep spreading war inside the Russian Federation, which is very logical and just, taking into account that Russians wanted war. Apart from the Kursk region that is under the control of the Ukrainian forces for more than half a year, and with all the support from China and North Korea, with real troops, real army of a different nation fighting with Ukraine alongside Russians, they did not succeed at all. And also you have to understand that this Russian front line, it is super dispersed, if it's possible to say so, but we have more than a dozen of Russian regions where they have important military objects or strategic for the Russian economy oil refineries, and Ukrainian drones travel there traditionally every day and do the job. Right now, Russia has already banned sharing any videos, but Russians keep doing that. And we also have satellite images and the numbers coming from the Russian economy, even though they are working really hard to hide that. For example, during this week, Ukrainian drones have successfully visited oil refinery in Saratov, a really big one that works for the Russian army and was capable of producing 20 different kinds of oil products. We worked in Rostov. We targeted an oil pipeline in Volgograd. We visited a military airfield in Engels, and this is very important because, first of all, it weakens Russia, and secondly, it saves lots of lives here in Ukraine and also paralyzes Russia for the future attacks on the democratic world. Please remember, it is not the moment in history to quarrel and divide, when we clearly see how Russia, China, and North Korea are working together. And no, it is no way that Trump can prevent Putin from making friends with Xi. Subscribe to see Putin in The Hague and to demonstrate your support to the people of Ukraine and all those who want to see the defeat of the evil Kremlin. That's important, and I believe you see that social media is one of the main sources of information and disinformation right now. So share these videos if you consider them important on all of your social media platforms. Another very vivid symptom of the weakness of Russian economy and Russian military are the donkeys that they introduce on the front lines. And no, these are not for complex terrains. We don't have mountains in the east and south of Ukraine. This is because of logistical problems. And Russian Defense Committee openly stated that it is okay to use donkeys. Well, first they used armored vehicles, and more than 40,000 of them were destroyed in the course of this war. So donkeys is an improvement. And just imagine how Putin feels that, knowing all that, seeing these donkeys on the front lines and camels, and seeing how Russia is enabled to protect oil refineries, thus losing serious revenue. They have people coming and begging them for negotiations, because this is how it looks right now. Unfortunately, it was not Putin who begged Donald Trump for a talk. We always see this very positive attitude from the United States right now, and Putin just allows that. This is super humiliating, and I personally believe that nothing will turn out of that, because dictators like Putin, they only respect strengths, not the position of weakness, when we are prepared to give everything just for you to stop. Most importantly, the things they offer Putin at the moment, like the return to G7 or something else, is something that he already had and did not value. And if he receives Ukrainian territories, if he receives a promise that he can control NATO, because honestly, not letting Ukraine join NATO is the control over NATO. Let's be realistic. If Putin has a vote inside NATO, then he controls it. So if he gets all of that, please, from what kind of logic you believe he will stop? Of course, he will for a couple of months or years to regroup his army, because at this moment it is extremely exhausted. And as a person who observes what is happening on the front lines, listening to the information that we get from, I don't know, the captured Russian soldiers, it's quite obvious that Putin is desperately afraid of a new conscription wave. He cannot mobilize people from Moscow, he cannot mobilize people from St. Petersburg, and that is why his very first try to get this open mobilization was treated very negatively. So he keeps getting these people from depressive regions, and by the way, the salary that they pay for joining the army is rising, but all in times when Russia is running out of money. So he is in this very desperate position right now. He cannot continue this war for more than half a year with his economy and with his shortage of people, and maybe even shortage of donkeys, and ineffectiveness of the North Korean soldiers. And giving him this chance, giving him everything he wants, and then tie him to regroup, because the military economy is working for him and he cannot also stop it abruptly. So all he needs is a vacation. And it is so wrong to give this vacation, especially disregarding the desire of the Ukrainian people and the European leaders. There is one thing that I do not understand totally in the potential peace plan that new US administration is offering, and that is that Donald Trump will help us stop the war, but then security guarantees are provided by the European countries. Okay, But at the same time, the European countries are not involved in the negotiation process. So they literally do not know what they guarantee. How can they guarantee that? And I think that it should not be the decision between Putin and Trump, because this is not the kind of world I want to live in. And personally, I believe this kind of world where just like big bosses disregard the desires of, I wanted to say small nations, but come on, we're not a small nation. And even small nations should be respected. So I think it's the thing of the past. It's just like Putin's worldview, and it's definitely not mine. But somehow I believe that this chaos will stop, and we will return back to a more like collective, more adequate, less emotional, less unpredictable manner, where Putin is still treated as a war criminal and like 25-year ruling dictator of the Kremlin, and not a potential business partner. Subscribe if you agree with me, and please share these videos on your social media platforms. Once again, what makes me believe that Putin does not take this time in history seriously, and he actually enjoys how many want to talk with him again, because he sent a drone to Chernobyl. And that was a message. Of course, it was intentional. It was flying really high so that radars did not identify it. And that could turn in something very, very bad. And I don't want to live on the planet where fear is the main factor of your decisions. It's just like choosing to live with an abuser or choosing to live with a maniac, hoping that he will not come to your flat when he will. And it seems to me that this Munich conference was very sobering, and not just there are a number of things that we felt and we saw. And I think this atmosphere was not friendly, and that is bad, because China and Russia are very friendly, and North Korea and Iran, and they do not, start these business trials. They are fighting against the West, they are fighting against us, they are trying to divide us. And sometimes I have this feeling that they are good at, but still there are chances it will change, especially if we remember that these are the people who have donkeys in their armed forces. I don't know why. Perhaps because of these billions of dollars that Russia invested in propaganda. Russia paid a lot of social media influencers to create this fake image and, to spread the BS then later people on very important positions keep repeating, like the Russian war in Ukraine was provoked by NATO. If you think so, please let me know. What military operation did NATO plan to attack Russia? When was it supposed to start? How did it was supposed to evolve? Like, do you really believe that NATO was preparing an operation against Russia? Because what I see right now, that even after Russia attacks NATO indirectly so far, it is not prepared to attack back, to fight back, actually. So once again, I will concentrate on the feelings and actions that take place in Ukraine, but I genuinely ask you to trust me that war between Ukraine and Russia lasts for approximately 300 centuries. It was very bad for us inside the Soviet Union. We don't want it to be recreated. Millions of Ukrainians, intellectuals, writers, like the best people, died during these years. You did not know about that just because of the censorship and how closed Soviet Union was. And at that time, it was not about NATO. It was not about NATO in times of Tsar Peter I. It was not in times when they banned Ukrainian language in the 19th century, when they sent the greatest poet of Ukraine to prisons, and they actually banned him from writing in Ukrainian language. It all happened in the mid of 19th century, long before NATO existed. Sometimes I think it's this simplified vision that these are resources or fear of NATO. And that is why it may be very easy for Putin to trick those people who are still looking for some typical traditional business problems between Russia and Ukraine, when this is a huge spiritual, civilizational difference. And no, there is no way that the United States can be friends with Russia, because the way you treat human life is very different from the way they treat that in Russia. I know that it's turbulent times, but we keep demilitarizing Russia, we keep fighting, and I'm sure Russia will be defeated, and then we can sign the papers with the next president of Russia. Of course, not Putin. Please join the community of the channel, support the campaign that we have with Ukraine AIDS operation for drones, jammers, and surveillance drones. This is very important, and this is how we actually can make peace come sooner, by supporting the Ukrainian armed forces. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. This is an honor and helps me write and film more. Join me on X, join me on Blue Sky, on Threads, Instagram, and we have an amazing Discord community. Same as we have a good merch shop with lots of items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. And right now we need more sane, adequate conversations about Ukraine and our important role in the defeat of the global imperial evil, which is Russia. I know you know that. I'm very grateful to have you as my friends and friends of Ukraine. Thank you so much, and we have to remain very, very, very united. I know we will. Slava Ukraini!